This session is Mastering Complex Medicare Communications. We're going to treat this like a baking show. You can see the Giordano's picture up in the corner. That's because Joe and I will be your chefs today.
Ready to go.
So, she didn't know this was happening. Gotta have a little fun. It's late in the afternoon, middle of the thing. All right, so where we are in today, go ahead and hit our buttons there, Joe. Thank you. Where we are today, this is the third of 3 breakout sessions. After this, you get a break, especially from me. But you get a nice break, and then we're gonna, what are you clapping for? Then you get a nice break, and then we're gonna do the keynote, which I highly recommend. You're gonna hear a very motivational speaker. And then we have our Enchanted After Dark, our offsite event, and you're gonna love that. Mm-hmm. So, next, what we're gonna cover today, go ahead, Joe. We're gonna cover, and you'll notice the whole cooking theme, right? Mise en place. Anybody here do any cooking? Okay, good. Mise en place. We got to get everything out where it needs to be. So we're going to tell you how to organize the project. We're going to tell you how to turn on AI and how to enable reporting, because that's very important throughout this process. Then we're going to bake the template. We're going to talk about the data model for an EOC. We're going to talk about doing the layout, handling the objects, touch on translation, because that's important for EOCs and Medicare documents. We're going to talk about alt formats, Braille, et cetera. Then we're going to talk about keeping that template fresh, how you minimize rework in those subsequent plan years, because we know that CMS loves to throw new templates at us on the annual basis. And then you get your badge. You're going to scan your QR code to request a badge. And again, super secret, highly unofficial how-to guide for me once you've requested your badge. And it goes into some pretty good detail. So with that, we are focusing, since this question was asked, on SmartCOMM and how you would manage a communication like an EOC in SmartCOMM. And with that, I will turn it over to my sous chef, Joe Gianta. Thank you, Joe.
Thanks, John. So today we're going to talk a little bit about evidence of coverage. So I'm Joe Gianta. I lead the professional services team in North America, and I know many of you here, but for those that I don't, welcome. So we're going to be going over a very complex document today, and there's a lot to cover here. So again, it's kind of like a cooking show. I'm going to show you a little bit leading up to the cooking process, but then I'm going to show you the finished product, because there's no way to do it all in half an hour. That recipe card goes into a lot more detail, and again, take a look at that after the show here, and we'll be glad to meet up with you and talk more about how you do these complex documents. So your EOCs, your ANOCs, and your SPs. So let's take a look here. So the first thing that we want to talk about here is opening up our template editor, and what I've done is I've taken the model EOC that you download from the CMS website, and I've created a template out of this. And so again, like John mentioned, we've been able to take a sample one from our customers. So thank you very much, and we've changed the name. But basically, what we want to do today is show you how you can build this document and maintain it year over year, because honestly, it changes every year. You don't know what's going to change. You don't know how it's going to change. But the process that we put in place here will allow that to be much simpler. There's a little bit of work up front, but once you get that work up front, it'll pay off in the long run. So year after year after year, when these change, it's going to take a lot shorter to create these in SmartCOMM. So again, you guys have seen an EOC before. This is what it looks like. There's not much that you shouldn't know here, but really what I want to start out with is the structure. How do you set this up? First things first is you need a folder structure to organize all these things. So I create a folder for each one of my specific documents, in this case EOC, and then I create a folder for each year of the standard items that come from the CMS. So every year I'm going to have a new folder for 2027, 2028, and so on. And then I also have things that are specific to each one of my plans. So things that are specific to my HMO, my PPO, etc. So you're going to have a separate folder for each one of your plans because that will change. And so what you're going to do is basically keep the things that are standard in the CMS folder, keep the things that are personalized and customized to your company in the plan folder, the things that are dynamic in nature. In addition, we have your typical folders like your layouts, your styles. You can even keep sample output here as well. But within the CMS folder, you have your different chapters, chapters 1 through 12, or however many that you add on. And then you have some snippets as well. So you have some shared content for things like the language assistance notice and the RPPO exception text. These are all very detailed, specific things in your EOC. Within the chapters, you have a different template for each one of your chapter. And you'll notice there's a naming convention here. Pay attention, the naming convention is important because we're going to be doing dynamic enclosures and dynamic shared content. So we need to name these in a certain way so that every year it can get picked up automatically. All right, so that's your CMS structure. Next step, data model. You get a PBP file. Everyone's heard of a PBP file before? No? Yes? Maybe? It's a JSON file that you get from the CMS. It gives you the data model. That's great. You don't have to spend time creating a data model. So you can import the JSON file from the government, or you can create your own JSON schema from that, but SmartCOMM's ingested as is. So you can go straight from the government file from the website and import it. However, there's a little bit of tweaking that needs to be done here. So, as you might guess, their document data structure is not necessarily in the format that is conducive to creating templates. It's conducive to the object models that they in their minds came up with, but it doesn't necessarily help you out when you're doing your authoring. So you'll find things like a bunch of references from one section of the data model to the other. So you're bouncing around and doing a lot of complex logic. And so what I recommend is taking that and modifying it slightly. And so you can use derived properties to do something like that. So let me just zoom in here so you guys can see a little bit better. This is just one example of things you can do. For instance, you can take a derived property and you can say, if the category code equals 1A, then use these fields. Otherwise, if the category code equals these, then use these other fields. So you're not bouncing around and redoing this logic in every single section of the template over and over and over again. So there's some derived property things you can do. Some other things to think about are things that are custom to you or information that you need to add for your business to be able to describe what it is that you're selling. So that might be a part of that. That's the data model in a nutshell. Every year it may change, so you may have some tweaks that you need to do year over year. So the translation of the data model into the PBP is a part of that, and so that's something that you need to keep in mind. So next thing we'll take a look at is the structure of the document itself. Let me just zoom back out just a tad, and what we want to see here are the different sections. So first things first, you have your body page here, your opening page, and that's usually unique or changed per company and per plan oftentimes. Inside of here, you have things like table of contents, for instance, and then you start to attach your chapters. Your chapters can change order every year. Chapter 2 might not be chapter 2 next year, if they just decide to change the order. So that's where that naming convention comes into play. If you name it the right way, you can pass in the data what the order is from the government that year, and you can dynamically generate this EOC without having to go in here and tweak things every year. So you're not hard coding your endorsements. So we have a for each loop here. For instance, I just wanted to show you, this particular if statement's checking if this plan is offering Part D. and if it is, include the chapters on Part D drugs and Part D cost. So those are 2 chapters of the UC that only get included when that's part of the plan. Otherwise, just do this dynamic enclosure here. And again, this loops through a list of data. That'll be part of the data translation, but you have a list of the order of the chapters. And whatever order that you pass in the data, SmartCOMM automatically grabs that template from that folder and creates a packet, basically. So that's how this works in a nutshell. You do a quick preview here. You can take a look at what it looks like. I didn't build out the whole thing because it's over 150 pages, but that is something that we can help you with when it comes time to actually building this. Building the template is not the hard part by any means. Obviously it's long, it takes a little bit of time, but the hard part is making sure the structure is well put in place. So you can see all the chapters down here on the right, everything that you have. So the other thing, just to point out real quick, look at that. There's some Braille in there. Go into my next topic here, accessibility. So Braille being one of the things that you need to worry about. How do you generate Braille? So don't want to get into too many details, but essentially it's just a font. You can download a free font from several different websites I found. You import it into your FOP config. If you've never done that, we can help you. But you just reference a font, and it's referenced in one of your styles. So if I were to go down here, and I go to my styles, you can see I search for Braille, and I made it one of my styles. And this particular line, I just, for demonstration purposes, made it Braille. So that is as simple as it is, but there's a little bit more to it. I did some more digging into it. Braille is not necessarily, take the English and turn in some dots. That's not, what that is. You have to do an actual translation into the short code. So there's like a shorthand of Braille. It's kind of like a stenographer in a court. They have their own shorthand for Braille, and so you have to do that translation first. But yeah, from a SmartCOMM perspective, it's as easy as a font. So you can create that. Other things from accessibility, large print. To do large print, you heard earlier, dynamic style sets. That's a capability of SmartCOMM, so you can dynamically change the style set if you need it to be large print, and use the large print style set. The other option that my team recommends is doing additions. So you can have addition on the fragment for the large font, so it's bigger for the hard of seeing. So that's a little dip into accessibility. Obviously, there's sections here in content intelligence that will get into accessibility in terms of when you're creating your template. It tells you what you should be doing. So you should be adding captions to your images and your tables. You should, there's certain rows missing. There might be certain colors that are not shaded correctly. So this gives you a starting point. From there, you need testing tools. NVDA and JAWS are the 2 most popular. These are screen readers. They help validate the output. They'll take the PDF and figure out what it is that is going on. So when you do that, you want to make sure that you're getting correct validation, because there's different interpretations of what those rules are. So you need to double check with those various tools. So that's a little bit about accessibility. Let's jump into AI here, shall we? For some of the features that you guys saw on the main stage here, let's just do a quick demonstration of that. So within your template, you can do translation. You literally just highlight the text. You go into Design Assistant. You do Translate, and then you pick the language that you want to do. So I'm going to turn this, for sake of argument, into Spanish. What the Design Assistant does is it tells you what the AI-generated text is. You can validate, yeah, that's roughly correct. And I just hit Replace Content. And you have your other language there in your document. Obviously, you would do that within an edition. And so you have editions for each of the languages that you need to support for your communities. SmartCOMM uses AWS for the translation. There are literally hundreds of languages that you can use. And so it's very straightforward and simple. So I just wanted to make sure that you guys saw that and you had an idea of where that is. In addition to that, I want to make sure you're aware of turning this on is a purposeful thing. It's not just there. So number one, you work with your CSM or your account rep to sign an additional terms and conditions for using AI. Number two, you get our support team to enable this. Number three, you click this button to enable AI content generation. So it's a very purposeful thing. You're not going to suddenly fall in and start using AI. You have to purposely go through this. So I just want to make sure that anyone's concerned about it just happening to be there. That's what happens. Sorry about that, guys. Number two, the other thing that I want to point out is the audit trail. So it's important to keep an audit trail of when you're using AI, who is doing it, what's going on. And so you can click download AI audit. It creates a spreadsheet of all the transactions that happened, both for generating content as well as using translation, as well as our knowledge assistant. So all of that is audited. It's kept in SmartCOMMs, and you can export it for your own purposes. So the governance model is there in place. From a languages standpoint, if you want to translate into other languages, you create your language here. For instance, my particular tendency didn't have Chinese when I was setting this up. So I added the language here. And you can see the translation target language. This is where you can pick what's available in our AWS translation engine. So you can see there's tons of languages here. If you want Afrikaans, you can do that. If you want Vietnamese, you got that. So there's tons and tons of languages to choose from. Don't be fooled by what was in that translate to list. That was just what I had set up. But you can set up as many languages pretty much as you need. Randy, you have a question? Okay. That's AI translation. The other thing to know about accessibility, going back to that, is the configuration. So the configuration of that is very simple and straightforward to turn on tagging, if you will, inside SmartCOMM. So there's this thing called the FOP config. This is just where the engine's modified and optimized. So you can come into your FOP config, and what you can do is you can create, you can turn on accessibility. Literally, just this one line. Copy and paste that in, boom, accessibility's on. Doesn't mean you're done, though. You have to create your templates in a certain way that are accessible. But that's as easy as turning that accessibility on so your PDFs are tagged. So they're able to be read by a screen reader like JAWS or NVDA. So that's just a few things there on accessibility. So you have, again, Braille, you have large print, you have your translation. So those are just a couple things I wanted to mention. Last couple things on accessibility, text to voice. So that's another requirement as well. So what's on the screen needs to be read. Obviously, there's screen readers. A lot of people use that. But there's also this format called SSML. It's just an XML format. It's also supported in JSON. But again, SmartCOMM can create an XML channel and output that so that your SSML readers can read that. And what it does is it reads it with inflection, or if you want to emphasize a certain word. So it's a whole language, or if you will, a format of XML for telling screen readers or do the text to voice what to do. So SSML is your solution there. SmartCOMM has had XML channels for years. So anyways, that is something that you'll definitely need at some point, because these are all rules and regulations that you need to support from accessibility. So again, SmartCOMM has this for you today. Not much that you need to do to get that set up. Audit readiness. So we already talked about keeping these files year to year. Keep the output in SmartHub. The other thing I just wanted to point out is there's an audit trail already in SmartCOMM. If you haven't seen these reports, it's just the reporting. It can be turned on by support. You have your CMS resource audit. You can see what's been done over the last let's say a week or so, and you can download a report. It's very, very simple. Again, this is accessible via API as well, so you have an audit trail. It's always there. If you want to export it, you can into other systems. So all of that is available to you out of the box today. It allows you to keep that audit trail and that accessibility of everything that's being done there inside SmartCOMM. So let's get back to EOCs, shall we? So really what we want to talk about is year-over-year changes, right? So 2027 version comes out soon. You're going to need to download that. And what are you going to need to do? So first things first, you need to do a comparison. So everyone's used Microsoft Word to compare one document to another. You can do that, great. You got the job. You can do the translation or from year to year. So you look at what's changed, you look at what you need to update, and you go and make those changes. And the great part about that is you've already got your CMS folder structure set up so that all you need to do is copy and paste your folder here into 2027. You have your starting point there. And then you go and just make changes to what needs to be changed. And this is why we kept apart the things that were dynamic from the parts that were static or given to you by the government. That way, you're not updating everything. You're not having to go through and with a fine-tooth comb and figure out what changed and what didn't. Having just a simple comparison with Word points out exactly where you need to change, and you go make those changes. So year over year, you put the investment up front. It's going to be a lot easier in 2027 and beyond to make these changes. So this recipe that John and I have created will help you with that, and we'll be glad to come in and build the first session for you, and so that going forward you can do this yourselves. It's not an onerous process because a lot of times I see customers outsourcing this to other vendors. You don't need to do that. You can control this yourselves. You can make this part of your own internal process. So I think that was it. John, was there anything else?
I think you covered everything. If you flip back to the presentation, the reason that we're doing this session, now granted, we did this at a Gallup, right? This is not our normal training that we would do, but we got feedback from when we did a class research project. Our customers told class, we really want more in-depth training, use case-based training. So give me some advanced use case-based training. So this is a teaser, a taster, right? Your free sample of what some more in-depth use case-based training might be like. Your job is to go home and think about what other use cases would I like to see Smart cover, and let us know so that we can get to work putting more in-depth training than this together. But the reason that people like this particular approach, Joe mentioned that it's data-driven. The PBP pretty much drives the creation of that EOC. It is compliant by almost default. Accessibility, the alternate formats, the language translations, and most of that, the heavy lifting is done with that first year. It gets progressively easier for the second and third and subsequent years because you're focusing on deltas, not the entire project and rebuilding it. This thing is reusable, so a lot of the content can be reused across PPO, that should be HMO, POS, D-SNP, etc. There are some unique sections, but even creating it the first time, you can copy and paste projects like Joe was showing instead of having to start from scratch. Now, on the next slide, we have a QR code. Point your camera at this QR code. It's going to fire off an email or queue up an email. The email is going to go to our badge program, and I'm going to get copied. So when you ask for the badge, you're also asking for the recipe card. And I will know that you've requested the recipe card, and I will send you the recipe card. It goes into a little bit more depth about how we're using data transforms and some other advanced cooking techniques, if you will, in this project. But it'll give you a really good shot at setting up an EOC project on your own. And if you do need help, Joe and team are here to help.
Absolutely. So
Any questions about what we ran through very quickly? I got the hats on Amazon, by the way, in case you're wondering that. Any questions? I see a lot of phones up taking pictures of the slide. That's fantastic. I expect to see a lot of emails. If this is the kind of stuff you want to see more of, let us know, please. You will probably get a survey about each of the sessions at Innovate. If you like this session and you want to see more of them, or even make that training session longer, let us know. Give us that feedback. Thank you very much for your time and attention. Have a great rest of your day. Manja.